Welcome to Parents Who Think. Danusha here. My guest today, Steph, is a high-profile professional and mother who has navigated divorce and dating, and she's here to talk with me about embracing her sexual self and the importance of self-acceptance. This is set to be an open and honest conversation about the complexities of motherhood and female sexuality, because it's time to break the stigma and reclaim our desires. Here we go. Welcome. Can't wait for our conversation.
Thank you, Danusha. I can't wait either. I always say this, as women, we have all these roles, these hats that we wear, and the sexual being is completely effaced for a time or maybe forever because we're so good at caring for others and putting ourselves last. But we have to, at some point, remember that we are sexual beings, and we need to remind ourselves of that by doing things, in my case, wearing things, which sort of helps you get into that role, into that state of mind, that you are a sexual being. And, again, you can't do everything for your children. They have to realize that you have a life, that they have to see you enjoying yourself because you're their role model. They have to see that this is what it's like to live a full life. And sex is a very important part of life. And being sexually fulfilled is something that you want for everyone, including your children.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting that every single human has a relationship to mothers. We all do, whether we actually have a relationship with our mothers, but we do have relationship to mother, and we have a relationship to sexuality. And whether we're actively sexual or not, we all have one. And it's a funny one, isn't it?
Yeah.
We all have a relationship, to our genitals and our desires and our arousal, and whether that's upplayed in our life and very intense, whether it's downplayed and, in fallow, it doesn't matter.
Yes, exactly. And it is fallow for a lot of the time when women are bogged down in drudgery, and bogged down with childcare and the responsibilities of motherhood. And you get all these couples where the woman says, I've got no sex drive. My libido is at, floor level. And the husband's getting frustrated that she doesn't want to have sex. And there's this, they go for therapy, nothing works. They get divorced. Boom, she's back up. And she's suddenly raring to go. It's nothing wrong with her libido, actually. It was everything else was just pushing it right down and making it go right to the bottom of the pile. And she just needed something to reawaken it, right? She had to own her desire. And this thing about desire, I've always been quite a sexual person. And, throughout my marriage, I would say the sex wasn't bad, but it was perfunctory. And I got married very young at 18. And, when I then got divorced and hit the dating scene with gusto, you have to remember I hadn't dated anyone since 1991. And I was horny as hell. And I don't know whether it was just, I wasn't really horny just for orgasm and release. I wanted someone to feel, amorous, desirous of me, wanting me. There was this kind of spike of wanting to get out there and try everything and do everything. And one of the reasons why I didn't leave my marriage earlier was because I thought, well, no one's going to want me now. I'm too old. I'll never find anybody to love me again. And that's obviously all about the self-esteem problems that we have when we're in a relationship where we're not wanted, when nobody tells you that you are a gorgeous, sexy person, right? Your self-esteem just drops and you don't hear it anymore, so you don't feel it anymore.
Coupled with societal pressures that say, as you get older, women are done and dusted, they're dried, they're over, which of course is ridiculous.
And, I wanted to meet lots of people. I wanted to experience lots of things and to go to different parties and to try out stuff, So each experience was, for the most part, a positive experience when you look at it like that, The worst that could happen was that I'd waste a couple of hours having dinner with somebody. But usually I would be having a conversation with somebody that I would never have otherwise met. And if I ended up, having sex with them, it was a new experience. And it was all part of this expansion of myself, or pushing out of my boundaries to create more, more space. And when I was dating, say, several people at one time, people would say, oh, you're doing it American style. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I didn't know it was American style. They say, oh, yeah, that's what they do. They date several people. And I was like, well, it makes sense, right? But you have to date lots of people and you don't have time to wait it out, see whether it's good or bad, so you have lots of people. And as long as everybody's happy about it and, consensual about non-monogamy, I don't see anything wrong with it. And, this is one of the very strong social narratives that we're obviously conditioned to accept, that monogamy is the right thing for everyone. And it's the right thing for many people, but for others, it's just not something they choose to do, and we shouldn't make them feel bad about it.
Yeah, for many people, it's the kiss of death, isn't it? To their spirit, their soul, literally their libido.
Yeah.
Actually, what you're talking about also is Regina Thomas Hauer in the States, in New York. She calls it defensive dating. And one of the reasons that kind of dating multiple people at the same time is so necessary for women is because what we tend to do, we've been taught to put all of our eggs in one basket. We find somebody we like, they engage us, we're very present with them, we invest in them emotionally, sexually, in our time, and then we zone in on them. How many women have actually already thought, Danusha McIntosh, what kind of ring does that have?
So guilty with that, just jumping right ahead into scenario. But I might make sure I rein myself back from that and say, let's see how this plays out. Let's just be present now with every single person. And for however long it lasts, whatever you get out of it, it is a good thing that we've shared this experience together, and the people that you've slept with can become good friends because you've shared a lot with them. You've opened up to them. They've seen you at your most vulnerable. And assuming that you already had something that you liked about each other, why shouldn't they become good friends? And I get such a different perspective of life from them that, really adds to me.
Amazing. But I'm more curious. Presumably there was something there in the first place to warrant you going to bed with him. But that's what I'm wondering. Did you or do you ever go to bed with somebody and have sex with them if there isn't?
Yes, I tried that. And what I realized that for me, if I didn't connect with them mentally and I didn't find them sexy between the ears, I just lost my lady boner completely. If I didn't match them in my values, in our conversation, in intellectually, something like that, I just lost it. I had no interest. No shade on other women who say, I'm just going to go out there and, just find beautiful people and just have sex and almost anonymously. It's just not done it for me. I don't think that would ever work. I need to know that person. I need to know what switches to flick and for them to know what buttons to press on me. And that's when it becomes erotic and sensual.
Yeah, exactly. It's in that mental connection.
Yeah.
And for others, it's maybe the exact opposite. It's the freedom of the anonymity that actually does it for them. So it's very interesting.
This journey has really made me into a different person. People look at pictures of me now and then they look at an old picture of me and they say, that doesn't look like you. Just doesn't look like you. And really, it's changed. I haven't had any, work done. Changed my hairstyle a few times, but I am a different person. I feel different. I'm exuding something else, that was hidden or it was cast very low down in me, or I just wasn't bringing it out of myself. It's now out and it's different. So, I have a tattoo on my back, which I had a few years ago called it says version 2.0 on my back.
Oh,
And, I liked the idea that it looks a bit like you're a piece of machinery. But it really felt like I had morphed into something different, a new me. Or maybe it wasn't a new me. Maybe it was a me that was always there, but it had been suppressed.
you gave air to her. You've given airspace and life to her and permission and love to yourself, to any parts of you. What I wanted to know is whether Steph being a different person sexually impacted other areas of her life. So I asked her. Here's what she said.
And it's amazing how this then sort of bleeds out into other areas of your life, in, say, the way you conduct yourself in the professional capacity. So, the way I knew it was really transformational was that I was seeing this guy and he was really submissive and he wanted me to be a sort of dominant woman to him. And he kept telling me how powerful I was and how when I was striding around, there was just this power that he could feel from me. I felt this power surging through me just because he was telling me. And if I feel powerful now, because I've been told. And then when I was at work, I would just take no shit anymore. It was therapy in a way for me, because it was really making me feel like, yes, you are strong, you are powerful, you can do all these things. So that really was the springboard for me to do a lot of other things, like start my own business and start writing a bit more and start being more creative, because I suddenly felt, actually, I've done all these difficult things in my life. Nothing more, it's not going to be any more difficult to do these other things. So just go for it.
I mean, seriously, like, wow. It's obvious that you couldn't possibly be holding one part of yourself either suppressed for so long and wildly successful over in the other area of your professional life. There will be a capping because of the suppression in your personal life, because of, there's part of yourself that's not really present enough.
Yeah.
Whereas now, of course, it's consistent with the fact that you're bigger, bolder, braver, edgier, probably funnier, more alive.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
And
It's aliveness.
And this is, something that many people talk about who are hiding something at work. It's weight that they're carrying. And they always talk about it, that when they throw off that weight, it allows them to be a lot more creative and productive. And I talk about this in sessions on diversity, about how it benefits everybody to allow people to bring their whole self in, because they can give so much more. They're not spending energy trying to hide and suppress something. I'm Chinese, just a normal woman, but from a background which is traditionally, has certain strictures on what you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to be. And so it's a demographic that's really, really underrepresented in this whole thing about sex positivity and body positivity. But there is a generation of girls coming through who are from my background and who probably do want some role models, and they want to be able to say, okay, I can look like this, or I can be like this. So visibility is really important. If that's the only reason that I should continue putting myself out there, then that's good enough.
And now, by actually being on, you've been writing, but by being on an episode like this, a podcast, for instance, you're adding in voice. So visibility and voice. And we need that. We need it from one another, don't we? It's really important.
And the thing that, does encourage me is that every time I do something like talk at an event or speak on something, I always get a handful of women, and often a group of Chinese women, who come up to me at the end and say, thank you so much. There's some this I want to do that I've been too scared to do, and I was so glad to see you talk about these things. And yeah, I think that's worthwhile. I'm glad I did it, because if it just reached one or two people, then it makes it as well.
It certainly does. And I am sure this particular episode will reach so many women. It's pretty rare to have a conversation with such, I don't know, what is it? Just absolute self-acceptance and love. No shame. It's like, yes, just go do this, enjoy, and love yourself in it. So I'm deeply grateful that you were willing and to be on this podcast with me. And I thank you so much.
Yes, thanks so much, Sure. I've had a lovely time.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Parents Who Think. I hope Steph's story has been thought-provoking. Until next time, keep thinking, keep loving, and keep owning your desires. Take care, everyone.